this program that we can help everyone, get started or do a little bit more if they've already have started doing things like this. Now, first up is Vlad. Now, Vlad blew me away. He is a passionate and pragmatic appraiser. He has a fever for tech infusion in the process of his assignments. So I'm going to say, Vlad, wow us. Take us away with your insights.
Thank you, Dory. It's a pleasure to be here with y'all today. Um, yeah, I put together just a couple slides that I will now share my screen and share with y'all. But it's a very exciting time to be an appraiser. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah, so why am I excited, right? I'm a little bit newer to the game than pretty much everyone on here or in the profession currently. And part of what really drew me to appraisal, specifically right now, is the amount of impact that the intelligent, um, selective, very mindful use of technology can have in really freeing us from some of the more kind of drudgery, more tedious aspects of our, jobs, in order to focus on the things that technology can't replace, the judgment, the understanding the context, the complexity of the situation. And so, yeah, I'm just going to do kind of a quick overview of why I'm excited, how I see it, how I work with it. And then we have two amazing practitioners who will be going through some more nitty-gritty workflows of how they use it day to day. So yeah, first up, this is kind of the image, right? We have the little robot helper carrying, doing the heavy lifting, and it's really freeing us up to do what as of right now, at least, only humans can. Really focus on the professional judgment, the complexity, figure out how to actually serve the clients that we work with, and make sure that we're making the right decision, while having it help us. And Steve asked me to talk a little bit about prompting. One of the frameworks that has been kind of going around is the CRIT framework, CRIT. It's from the AI-driven leader book that recently came out. And first you give it the context, and then you give it kind of the role you want it to play, and then you tell it to interview you. You tell it to ask you a couple questions, and then you give it the task, and that's sort of an example of the left side of this, which is kind of the perfect prompt. And I think it definitely behooves us to be very mindful about what we're putting in because that lays the foundation. However, the big insight that I want to share is I don't know if I've ever had less than maybe 20 back and forths. Sometimes it's hundreds of back and forths with the AI whenever I'm doing something, really really important. So just wanted to share that it's kind of a dance, between setting that foundation, making sure it knows exactly what we're looking for, and then being very prepared for something to come back that's not quite it and using that human judgment to go back and forth until we get to something that's much closer. And so the little graphic at the bottom, it's thinking of AI as the world's smartest little appraiser helper, right? It reads all the books in the library. I asked it to explain like I'm five. I don't know if you ever look at that, but reads every book in the library in 5 minutes, never gets tired, right? Answers immediately, but it'll very confidently make things up. And we don't know when it's lying and when it's not. We can ask it to help us find when it's lying. But yeah, that's kind of the move is to let the AI really do the boring parts, really do the parts that can be verified, and then go ahead and verify it. You can use it to verify itself as well, but then at some point it's like, how do you trust it? And that back and forth of asking questions, fixing the mistakes, and then ultimately, it's up to us to make that decision and to commit to it and to put our license behind it. So we can't hide behind it's what was generated. We have to be fully aware and responsible for everything that we produce. And this is apologies for all of the complex graphics. I got a little crazy with having it help me generate these, but this is an example of a prompt that I've used. It sort of applies in more of like a litigation support situation, and it's basically using USPAP in order to check a report for how credible, how defensible it is, what instances of non-compliance with USPAP might exist, and how we can strengthen it. So I'll just, again, a lot of graphics I'll walk you through. So the inputs, it's the report, it's, the use pap and whatever reference materials, and then it's the instructions or the prompt. And then the AI goes in, does its review, and then I had it use this CRAC, output, something that, attorneys tend to learn in law school, and they tend to like it, where, this is the potential issue with it. This is the USPAP standard that it applies to. This is what actually creates the concern. And then the last one is usually conclusion again. I change it to cure. So if it's my report, how can I fix this? Is this something that can be supported, or is this something that does not belong in a credible, defensible report? Um, and so the next one is very much the same thing, but just one final element. This is kind of like the prompt I would use to it, and then I'll show you the actual words. But the words, they all look kind of the same. It's just, the light text on the dark background. So hopefully this is helpful. But yeah, for the inputs, at minimum, you could have your report, the use PAP, but then you could also add the advisory opinions, any FAQs, any engagement letters, any, state-specific laws, or, if you're doing bank work, any client-specific, things, really giving it everything we need in order to do a good job, and then telling it what a good job looks like. And then when we get the output, actually having it analyze it, and then we still can't really trust it. So it's less about having it do the work for me and more about having it save me time and kind of if we're looking for issues, maybe it'll point us in the right direction, and then we can use our judgment to verify, to judge, to decide, things like that. So I'll just kind of wrap it up here. This is what it would look like, this is sort of the prompt, right? So I'm saying, hey, this is the format that I want you to produce this in. And I'll just quickly go to the next one. And this is, how I want you to rank it. And this was the minimum possible prompt that I could basically do. This is super, super simple. So this thing could have been 15 pages long. And once you make it once, if it's coming out the way you like it, you can continue to refine it, but you can really sort of reuse them. And the output, the next slide, it's not what it looks like. This is a AI generated image just to kind of drive the point home. I uploaded a report, that I had hired someone for back in the day, and this was the result. So when I looked at the report, one thing that really stood out is that the income approach wasn't done on a 4 unit income property. But I wanted it to actually look at what does USPAP say, and so it came up with these top 5 things that were pretty I'd say incompatible with what is required there. And I just had it make this graphic. This is what the output actually looked like on this next page. It's saying, hey, this is the executive outcome. So overall use PAP risk, is high. So in this particular document that I took out any personal information from the appraiser or anyone else, and I upload it to the paid version as well. You want to get the paid version and click the box where it doesn't share your data. But this was the result. So they had reported multiple values throughout the report. That's definitely frowned upon, very confusing. Um, there wasn't a lot of support for the adjustments and the sales comparison approach. That's a pretty common one. And then this is the one that really stood out to me is, they didn't use the income approach on an income property. So yeah, so I'll leave you all with this is just more of those. You kind of learn how to comb through them and zero in on the important parts. But I'll leave you just with this thought. Technology is always going to be changing, right? If we're doing this presentation a year from now, we might be talking about something completely different. But the one thing that doesn't change is really the professional judgment and the ability to understand what is reasonable, what is credible, what is defensible, and to sort of put our license behind it. So I have a firm belief that AI is not going to AI is not going to replace appraisers, but it will help appraisers who learn how to use it well. This is a little kind of Disney, but I think that the future isn't human versus AI. It's human and AI working together. So I want to pass it off to Stacy, who's going to show us how she actually uses this day to day in her practice.
You're on mute,
You-
Stacy.
Gotcha. Thanks, Vlad. That was great. So, what I'm going to share with you all is just some basic review prompts. I do a lot of review work, and first step for me is I just look at the report and I just go through it with a red pen and circle and make marks, things that stand out before I really get into it. And I picked 4 reports that I've done recently, and I've already pre-typed my prompts in a Word doc. So what I'm going to do is share my, I use Copilot for these generalized questions. I'm not using specifics about the reports, the property. They're just general. Because again, I'm on the public airways using the Copilot. I am in the process of building my own private AI where I'm going to put everything in there that I want my AI assistant to reference, and it will have no access to the outside world. It even has its own internet line. So I will start off by telling my AI, I'm going to share my screen. I'm just going to put the Copilot screen on here, and we're going to pick that. Boom.
So
Okay.
Stacy, I'm going
Yep.
to just say something real quick, which I forgot to mention. Any questions, throw in the chat, and we'll get to them at the end. And I want to make a clarification a little bit. So, Vlad, it showed you something he did in Chat GPT, a paid version of Chat GPT. So there are paid versions, free versions, whether it's ChatGPT, whether it's Grok, whether it's Claude, whether it's Copilot, whether it's Google Gemini. And these are all systems worthy of exploring on your own. I just want to make that clarification here. So go, Stacy.
Okay, thanks, Dory. So can everyone see my Copilot prompt screen? Okay. So I'm going to first off start telling Copilot, okay, I am going to, I'm putting in the first prompt. It says, I'm going to be reviewing a URAR residential appraisal report with the effective date of blah, blah, blah. It gives me a prompt. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I tell it I'm going to start reviewing a report. So I'm looking at my report, and what I want to do is make sure that my AI assistant is also going to be using the correct USPAP version based on the effective date. So again, I kind of just remind it that we want to use the correct USPAP. And as you can see, its response back to me, of course, thank you for calling that out. It's like I'm having a conversation with somebody. So I'm looking at the report here, and here's the first thing that I found. It's an FHA report. I am going to tell it that it is an FHA report. And let me see, I copied the wrong thing here. So I'm just having a hard time copying, pasting for some reason. Okay, here we go. So my first question is to my AI assistant. I say, throughout the appraisal report, FHA guidelines are referenced. Is this in line with FHA HUD Handbook 4000.1? And it comes back and says, why referencing FHA guidelines is a problem. Now, it's the word guidelines that caught my attention as I'm reviewing it. It's supposed to be requirements. Well, it's not supposed to be, but we're supposed to be referencing requirements. And this was the response that I got from the AI assistant. If you can all see, the appraiser must observe the property and report on the physical deficiencies. So I'm just using this as a guideline, like maybe the AI assistant will kind of help me pick up on something that I wouldn't have picked up on. So that was one of the first items that I found. Now another report. Okay, I tell it that I'm reviewing another property here. I give it a new prompt saying I'm reviewing another report with the effective date of that. And the problem I found on this report was the report indicated that the subject site frontage was measured by an online measuring tool within the town, GIS interactive map. And I wanted to see what the AI assistant would respond and how that would respond. And this is what it came up with. It says the comment's not acceptable as written. You are correct to flag it. And then it starts to break it down. It says saying the frontage was measured with an online measuring tool is not a reliable USPAP compliant method. Okay, that's just the AI's AI assistance interpretation. So it just kind of makes me go into my USPAP, read through things. It gives me references where I should look to find out if that's an acceptable way of doing things. And then I just take that in addition to what I find in the USPAP and obviously in my reviewer background, and I make a comment in the report, or maybe I just let it go and say, oh, okay, AI is saying this, but I don't necessarily agree with it, and it's not really jiving with how I'm interpreting things. So then, okay, either I use it or I don't. That's while I'm in the middle of doing the review. So another report which I found was quite interesting was the whole ANSI requirement. So I tell my AI assistant, okay, now I'm moving on to another report. Here's the effective date. Okay, got it. It acknowledges that we moved on to another report. And then I tell it, this is what I found in the report about ANSI. It is reported in the appraised report that I'm reviewing that the subject was measured per ANSI standards. However, all of the dimensions shown on the sketch are rounded to the nearest foot. Red flag. So I see what the AI assistant tells me about that. And then it says, you've seen this before. In fact, facts haven't changed. If the report claims ANSI compliance, but the sketch shows dimensions rounded to the whole feet, then the report is not ANSI compliant. So then it gives me some takeaways and some samples of commentary as a reviewer that I could put into the report, just acknowledging that, look, this is what I found. These are the standards that it's not in line with. And that's a sample of how I used it on that. I don't know how much time I have left here, but I do have one more, which I found quite interesting. I'm going to let it know that I'm reviewing another report, so I give it the effective date, so we're on track, that it's using the proper USPAP. So I tell it now the effective date is January 9th. So in this report, I found this statement and it caught my eye. It just, I don't know, it just caught my eye about something. It says the appraisal report I said the appraisal report I am reviewing contains the following statement. An extraordinary assumption has been made that the property ownership rights are fee simple and the subject does not have any liens, estates, encumbrances, or other attachments that might otherwise result in differing opinion of value. So an extraordinary assumption was made of that. And I just was curious in what the AI assistant was going to tell me. So it goes automatically to this is not an acceptable USPAP compliant, blah, blah, blah. And it just gives me some indicators and some references. Okay, this is where you should look in your USPAP and kind of focus on these areas. And I use that as a guide, again, to come to a conclusion as I'm reviewing these reports, how I want to address this. Do I want to even make a note of it in my opinion, in my review? So those are the samples that I have. Does anyone have any questions for me as far as using it as a tool?
Stacy, have you created a template, so this is um, a standard use, standard set of prompts?
No, no, this is not a template. These are I have a pile of reviews that I've done recently. I took the first top ones, went through, and I just typed up a Word document really quick. So I could just cut and paste into the prompts. I don't have a standard set of prompts. I just kind of just go like if I'm having a conversation as I'm working on each report. I don't have a set standard. But if I find that I'm finding the same issues in all reports, then I can just go back because obviously I save my communication with my AI assistant in my work file. So I can go back and say, okay, well, how did I come to this conclusion and what was I thinking and all of that. So any reference that I use with the AI assistants, I PDF that and put it in my work file,
So
which you
So,
can
Stacy,
do.
do you start a new chat then for each review? Here you were kind of like
Yeah,
blending
this
them
one I was going
together.
on and
Okay.
on, right? Because
Yeah.
I had 4 reports. Yeah, typically because I don't really do more than 1 or 2 reviews at one sitting. I'll do one, take a break, do something else, and then I go back. So it's just kind of like having somebody here at my desk, and I just want to say, okay, we're going to start this report now, and like Vlad said, it's like you have a conversation with it.
Do you, I noticed that it referenced FHA in almost all of the reviews. You could have said, if it was not an FHA, go by the guidelines of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac
Right,
or
correct.
something
Like
else. Yeah.
correct, right. Yeah, I would tell it, okay, I'm starting a new report. This is not an FHA report. And then it would say, okay, I'll disregard the FHA handbook. And, it really does a good job. I've done some retrospective reviews and I tricked it. And I said, okay, I'm doing a review. And then it went to the current standards. And I'm like, no, 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 the effective date is this. And then it'll apologize and say, oh yeah, that's right. Let me go to this set of standards. So it's very nice to me anyway. It doesn't.
Okay.
hey, Vlad, can you add anything to creating a template or something that you could use as prompts over and over and over and over without having to, retype?
I could definitely give it a shot.
Okay.
So yeah, I would think of it as Stacy's example was brilliant, where she's doing this. For example, let's say we're oftentimes reviewing FHA assignments. One way to do it, and one could even ask the AI for help. One could ask the AI to scan all of the past conversations that we've had about FHA and extract what it feels are the, steps that tend to repeat, the patterns that tend to emerge. And then sort of, it's almost like a big ball of clay. And then you start sort of sculpting it into something that might be reusable, might be helpful, almost like you're building a hand tool, a specialized FHA hammer, if you will. And that's kind of how I would think about it. And then this idea that um, it's such a privilege, it's an extraordinary privilege that we get to custom craft our own AI tools to help us as we're doing our work, and they can actually grow with us. We can evolve, they can grow in a direction where they're doing something we don't really like, and we could rectify that. They could uncover something that we really appreciate and we could codify that. So that would be how I would go about it, is just, first start just doing the thing kind of as Stacy has described, then look at what are the patterns that are emerging, and then what are some tools that we can use that to develop. But I also think the way Stacy was doing it was really good. So yeah, I think there's many ways to use it, and it depends on what you're, most comfortable with.
Thank you, Vlad. Thank you, Stacy.
Okay. Now we're going to move on to Tom. Yep.
Tom.
Hi, I'm Tom Whiting. Some of you know me. I've been in the business since 1987, so I'm probably the median age here, aligned with everybody. Old dogs can definitely learn new tricks. I've always been interested in technology. Um, I, I started one of the first commercial uh, sales databases back in 1987. So I'm just gonna share my screen and show you what I do. One thing I think that's important is we have to be aware of confidentiality when we insert parts of our reports or other people's reports into our AIs, because no matter what the AI says, you don't know where the data is going to end up eventually. These companies always change their terms of service. I like Stacy's idea of having a private AI right in your office. I would sort of recommend that it have no access to the internet. Just be air gapped so nothing can possibly leak out. There's been reports in the news lately where AI has escaped and erased a bunch of people's files, things like that. I don't know if they were prompted to do that or what, but anyways, there's always bad actors out there. So anyways, this is uh, Steve sent out asked for questions from you guys, and this is an answer to one of the questions about taking information from a adjustment grid and doing an analysis of it. I redacted the subject property information, the address, and just loaded this chart into AI. And I also inserted the format that I wanted it to be. You can take documents and put them into AI. I should probably show you how you do that. So what I did, you see the little plus button on my screen here for the ChatGPT. This allows you to add different types of files and documents and whatever. So I'm going to just tell it to include a couple of files. Let me get to...
Is this the free version, Tom?
No, it's the cheapest, the most inexpensive tier of the paid version. It's an $8 a month version.
Would you explain the differences?
Well, the differences mainly are the amount of computing power you get from the AI,
Mm.
which model you get to use, whether you get to use the latest model, a little bit lower tier where it uses less processing power, or even a really low tier. And it also comes with a certain amount, the paid ones come with a certain amount of security.
Yes. And the paid ones also allowed you to actually have AI create code for you.
Yeah. Well, the $8 version lets you do that too.
Yeah.
So what I did is I put an example of how I do my well, I put in the sales chart, and I put in how I like to have my adjustment analysis or formatted. And then I use the following prompt. I asked it to write up the adjustments based on the two files that I uploaded. And may as well do that now too. Hopefully I uploaded the right files. Sorry about that. For some reason it didn't. It must be at a peak usage time. Oh, here we go. Ah, anyways, I did this yesterday, and this is the output it gave me, which is very similar to the way I write up my sales adjustments. First, I tell the types of properties that I used, the range of the sizes, market conditions, sales terms, financing. And AI filled out all of this with accurate numbers. Something that usually takes me like half an hour to do, going through my report and going through my sales grid and putting in the proper numbers in the right places. And I'm an old guy, and I sometimes see dyslexically, I think, and I put the wrong number, for the high end of the range and the low end of the range and things like that occasionally. And this prevents that kind of thing from happening. We got a couple of requests for this. I also did it, excuse me, for residential property. I don't do residential properties generally. Well, but I had a colleague share a residential property that he did the adjustment grid. I redacted the information from the form, including addresses, so there's nothing to identify the property back to anyone. This is the entire adjustment grid. And then I wrote a prompt, write a summary narrative explanation of the adjustments used for each feature of each sale. And it gave me a narrative output. It's probably a lot longer than most of us would put into a report, but it gives a really nice explanation. One thing you have to do with this, the output is your responsibility. Everybody should familiarize themselves with Advisory Opinion 41. Everything that you run through AI and include and decide to, with your own judgment, to include in the report, you have to make sure that it's correct. You have to verify that so you can't just ask AI to run a prompt and then just put it in blindly into your report. You want to make sure that what it gave you is correct. Then another question that Steve gave me from one of you guys is looping analysis. And I that's a term I'm embarrassed to say I'm not really completely familiar with, but I tried it out. First, I asked AI what looping analysis was, and it gave me a little bit of education about it. And it's making sure that your adjustments fall within a certain range and are credible and are reliable in the report. And it also can point out outliers in your sales grid by sales price or by building area or things like that. In this, what I have up on the screen here is the output. And I have both of these examples as PDFs, and I'd be happy to share those with you guys.
Did any of this tell you that the reconciled opinion was out of ordinary?
Well, on the commercial example, I had it do a reconciliation, and I forgot to tell it to not come up with a final value.
Okay.
All I did, let me go back to the commercial.
And in any of these instances, Tom, did you actually ask AI to figure out what the adjustments should be?
No.
And
One thing I have done in the past
Yep.
is I've been working on some regression analysis to find out what property features factor in the most for certain commercial properties,
Yep.
like building area, effective age. I'm trying to get back to that prompt about the reconciliation. Sorry about that. I must be down here. And just before we got together, I downloaded a bunch of sales from down here in Florida where I'm located, right from my neighborhood, recent sales. And I had it do matched pair analysis of those sales. The houses in my neighborhood is very homogeneous. There are some variables like canal frontage, building area, age of construction, things like that. But it guided me towards what adjustments should be.
So the possibilities are endless.
Yeah,
Right.
they're
Once
yeah.
once you learn how to use these, right?
Yep.
And then create template tools that allow you to do, the looping, which would be a set criteria every time.
Right.
Right. And the same for predicting adjustments with a match pair.
Yep.
Right.
Or I
Or
believe in regression
or
analysis more than
regression.
match pair, because match pairs are rare, especially up in New England.
So, there are programs out there, like Spark and TrueTracks. This is what they do, right? They take that regression analysis and they create the adjustments for you,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
But once you learn how to do these things, you could do them on your own.
Yep. Does anyone have any questions?
So
Okay,
Tom
I'm gonna
mentioned
hand
that
it
he was
off to
going.
Dory.
Okay, so Tom mentioned that he was going to um, share his PowerPoints. Vlad has already given me his. Stacy, you were just kind of going and cutting and pasting as you were going along, and so I don't think we need to get anything from you at this point, but we'll be sending those out after the program is over. And so, Dory, I don't think any questions came up in the chat, but
I
welcome
don't.
anybody who would like to raise their hand, unmute, and ask questions.
Yeah, we have a few folks here that, have some knowledge of this beyond our panel. So, hey, Jonathan Asker, have you got something to tell us?
Hey, great job, guys. This is a pretty exciting time for all of us appraisers, I tell you that. One thing that I've done, and I think I mentioned it earlier, that is I set up my own chat, PPT. Now I'm on appraiser 1.3. And I've loaded up 20 documents into these path, all the books that I purchased, Dictionary of Real Estate Appraisal, Basic Appraising, ANSI Guidelines, the 199 page 3.6 guideline. And then I put samples in there of what they like. So I get it all in there. And I already created my own kind of role and who I am. So it's so simple to use now. I just go into it and it like knows that who I am and what I have to do. So it's you don't have to create a lot of prompts for that because it already knows how to be able to say it for easily. So I really encourage all of you just explore that. It's on ChatGPT. It's on the left side. It says GPT, and then just ask it how to create one for yourself. It's just pretty awesome. And one thing I'll talk about, just one thing I found very simple, great. It was I do load up my sales comparison grid in there. And then I said, I'm writing a reconciliation. I use text to voice to text, and I'll just talk about comparable one, comparable two. comparable to three. And then I'm saying, you get all my thoughts together and just give me a nice, concise reconciliation. Wow, guys, does it look great? And it's all me, but it says it better than I could. So,
Hey,
Yes.
Dory, I have a question for the three panelists in particular. Um, how did you learn all this stuff? Were you watching YouTube or, like for example, creating your own chat, GPT, or Stacy, you're creating your own
The
AI?
appraiser coach, Dustin Harris, highly recommend everybody get on him. He's got his own YouTube. He built his own crazy. This guy's nuts. But yeah, I learned from Dustin and Jonathan and Jonathan gives me tips on where to go and kind of points me in the right direction. But mostly watching a lot of YouTube and definitely using AI to build my own AI assistant. That's how I kind of got into this.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
just
for anyone out
naturally,
there, who might be a little concerned that, oh my God, I don't know about code. I don't know. You don't have to, right?
right.
The AI will create it for you.
Just play with it.
Yep. You actually give AI the logic. You actually tell AI, this is what I'd like you to do. For every single sale that's in that sales grid and every condition adjustment that's in there, doing a regression analysis for me, or bring in, 20 sales from MLS and, you know, tell me what the average, um, bath, adjustment falls out to, or garage, or living area, or AI can actually create this for you. You do not have to understand how to write code because you can tell AI to write it for you.
I have a question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
How does AI and Windows 11 work together?
Could you repeat that?
I find Windows 11 to be a horror show, and I don't know. I haven't used AI yet, but when I'm listening to you guys talk and how you get to where you're going, I'm sitting back here figuring out, okay, now what?
No, you just have to have internet. So what do you use for your internet access? Do you use Microsoft? Do you use Google? How do you get into the internet?
I'm a Microsoft guy, so I'm into Google, and when I get to the internet, it's going into Google first.
Yeah, so just for me, I would say just Google Copilot or Chat GPT in your Google bar and it'll come up. And then just kind of work it from there.
Google has its own AI. It's called Gemini. It's very similar to Chat GPT. So it's worth exploring all of these and seeing which one you like. They all do different things. And paid versions versus non-paid versions also do different thing. So it's worth exploring all of them.
Yeah, the four leading ones are ChatGPT, Claude, which seems to be coming on strong these days.
Yes.
Copilot is a Microsoft product. So if
Yes.
you're using Word and Excel, it's almost built right in. And then Gemini is a Google product. So try them all. I stick with ChatGPT even though I use Word a lot in Excel. And I'll drag my Excel file and a different way or an alternative way to bring a file into, let's say, ChatGPT is that you can just drag and drop it into ChatGPT also. And I've used it to do some interesting things with Excel files that I have no idea how it did it. But for example, I had a spreadsheet with about 15 columns in it, and I needed to reorganize or reorder the columns so that the first column would become the last one would become the first one, and it would kind of go that way. And it took ChatGPT about 30 seconds to do that. And saved a tremendous amount of time for me. So, Tom,
That's a
you were gonna,
good point,
yeah,
Steve. Yeah.
yeah, Tom, you were gonna talk a little bit. I think you were gonna mention about learning how to do this. Were you just about to
Well,
say that?
there's a couple things I'd like to talk about. One of them is Dory asked about saving prompts. I have a library of prompts that I save in Microsoft Word. I have a couple different documents with my prompts in it. You can just cut and paste and make some minor changes. Uh, I have a demographics prompt where all you have to do is change the name of the town and the county, and it gives you a comparison chart. Um, I have the same thing for unemployment, something that I used to do by hand. It took me half an hour to get a comparative unemployment rate for multiple locations over a course of 3 years. Now it takes, 30 seconds. Um,
Tom,
the other thing, learning AI is simple. All you have to do is just play with it. Figure out what you want to do and ask AI to do it. Maybe it won't get it right the first time because maybe the way you prompted it isn't right. Jonathan?
So one of the great things to encourage everybody on the call, if you can find one other person, I found that really wonderful. Stacy and I talked about the week meetings on this call, talking with her, and we start trading stories, and it's like, oh my gosh, of course you could load the D up there and get it cleaned up. Or that crappy block plane with a watermark on it, have that relief. I never thought of that. It's simple, like talking to other people, and find some people that you can share back and forth. It's really,
one thing I want to caution about is don't just use the output without verifying and checking it.
Yeah.
I avoid the trap that an appraiser in one of the other New England states fell into when he asked ChatGPT to develop a neighborhood description, just copied and pasted it into his report, and it happened to mention that the community was predominantly white. And of course, that got picked up by all of the reviewers and everything else like that, and a complaint was filed against him. So always make sure you're checking that output because, and again, there's a brand new advisory opinion, AO 41, that just came out from the Appraisal Standards Board. It's not been incorporated yet into the guidance and reference manual, but AO 41, one of its big points is the fact that the appraiser is responsible for the output because the tools themselves are not subject to USPAP. So keep that in mind, is that you're responsible for the output. Okay, questions. Come on, folks. You must have. Bernie had a great question. What else can we help you with? Wow.
Is this so anyway, I know you asked this question early on, Steve. How many folks here joining us have actually dabbled in any of this? How many raised their hands?
Just about everybody, I think, earlier.
Everybody, okay. All right.
And Dory, I think I just saw Alan might have a question.
Go, Alan.
Hi, I don't have a question, but I have a comment for you. Especially for someone like Bernie who might be new to him. So I've been using this for the past year all the time. I do a lot of writing, and I don't ask it to create for me. I have it proofread for me. So I'll put in initially I was just putting in a paragraph. Now I'm doing whole pages. So I'd give it a paragraph and I didn't have to say anything. I'd just hit the down arrow and it would spit it back out in better grammar, a few ways of saying it better, cleaner, more professional. And so I do this now all the time. And for some reason, it's like a seductive tool here. It compliments me. It knows me by name. And it says, Alan, you did a nice job on this. I like reading your reports. It's like, who are you? I don't ask it to create new neighborhood descriptions or things like that. But I ask it to cut and paste and tell me. And as I say, I don't have to tell it actually. I just hit enter, and it sends it back out within seconds, and with a cleaner version of it. And then I proofread that, and I often use that as the content of my report, and I replace what I wrote with what it's providing. The same material, but just more professionally written.
I had a
Bernie?
father who kind of directed me how to do that, and some college professors who would beat my brains out. So that's where I got my knowledge about having to do this.
Yeah, you'll find that ChatGPT and Copilot are very good with documents, reviewing, rewriting things, making them more concise. Really, really good with that. When you get into regression analysis, adjustments in the sales grid, market analysis, Claude, it is a great resource for that.
I have a quick thing to add.
Go ahead.
Building off of what Alan was sharing as well as Dory just now. One thing I like to think about is risk mitigation. And this idea that what if the tool is very confidently wrong about something? How big of an issue could that be? Elaine finds that funny. That's good.
Yeah.
And so I think the proofreading, the review, the kind of telling you where to look, but not necessarily making the decision for you, is a good one. Another thing I wanted to share about is it used to be called Notebook LM. I think they rebranded as something Gemini recently, but it's a tool where you can upload documents and have it only analyze those documents, completely independent of the internet or any of the other corpus of knowledge that might be out there in the ether. And so that's something where, I can upload something and then have it summarize and then have it give me the specific citations that I can then go look and verify is actually credible. So that would be, one thing is just risk mitigation. How can we set it up so that even if it's confidently wrong, it's not, damaging? And then just a note about learning it, using it in my personal life with my health and fitness goals, with, how do I clean my apartment? Still working on that one. Is a way to kind of build that comfort, maybe use a different tool for personal but professional. But the amount of things it can help with is really staggering. And using it for something like, a client product is kind of a high pressure thing. But using it to help me figure out what groceries to buy, significantly lower stakes, but very similar dynamics, right? Where it'll give me an answer, and it might be a really bad answer. We might need a bunch of back and forths, but at the end, ideally, we have a better grocery list.
So
I also just tested out one too. You could use it if you're writing a neighborhood description about proximity to highways. Punch in the address and say, tell me in miles how far the highways and major routes are from this address, and boom, 2 seconds, it's right there.
I'd like to say something from the lending perspective for everyone. So residentially and commercially, the entities that are, qualifying these loans are actually using these AI tools to sensitively analyze you and your conclusions. So they are utilizing ChatGPT. They are using Claude. They are taking, market data that you have supplied in your report and run it through Claude prompts to see whether it agrees or disagrees. Here at Leader, we had a consumer do that. He took his appraisal report. He ran the sales grid through Claude, had it analyze the adjustments and the support where they came from through an regression analysis, and sent in a reconsideration of value based on that. So this is becoming for all of us a consumer expectation, a lender expectation. So we've got to take our age-old business into this new tech world.
Okay.
Because
Hey, Dory.
we're being measured.
Dory, I'm going to check and see if Mark has a question. He's unmuted himself.
Great,
Oh, yeah,
go.
I do. Can you hear me?
Yeah?
Okay. I used AI for the first time. I was trying to figure out if, well, I had some information about a traffic study that was done a few years ago, and I used it to figure out if a development would be feasible if they put in a traffic light at a certain intersection. It gave me, after a few revisions to the question, it gave me a pretty good idea. I'm just wondering, how do I reference that in the report? Do I have to include the entire conversation, or just say, I got this answer from AI, or what do you think?
Tom, you want to take that?
I just say in my scope of work that I use AI for assistance in parts of the report. Do you know what AI used as source material?
Just gonna say that.
Just
What's
just
your
the
source?
traffic study?
It used some traffic engineering books, I think, something like that. I haven't.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And reference those too. You could reference those and analysis assisted by AI if you want to.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
but you gotta
But it's
double check
it
too.
was your judgment to use them, right?
Right.
So you're the one that came up with how to do what you did.
Right.
So it's you.
Mm-hmm.
Stacy, you were going to add something?
Well, I was just gonna say, yeah, you definitely the sources, research those, what AI told you its sources were, and make sure that the info and the interpretation from AI of those sources is actually similar to what, or if you agree to what the AI assistant is
Well,
concluding.
I wouldn't really know. I'm not a traffic engineer. Otherwise, I'd have to confer with the traffic engineer, which is another possibility. But the answer was so clear that the level of service at the intersection went from F to B or something that it's hard to believe that it wasn't in the right direction.
I think, I think this is going to be a great question even for a USPAP instructor at some point in terms of this. One thing I would suggest is that, you make sure you've got it all in your work file. So if somebody
Right.
questions it, but I think to the extent from what I've picked up in some of the conversations I've been in is that, if you put it into the report as your analysis, you can say is based upon an analysis of this traffic study that was conducted by, AI and verified by me.
Yeah.
Okay, then you're kind of properly disclosing how you got to that conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what it is all the way around, is almost with everything, is make sure you disclose. Tony, I'm sorry, I'm looking right at you. We have a USPAP instructor here. What would you suggest? And you have to unmute, Tony. You have to unmute.
I'm still thinking about what I was going to say about how I use AI as a research tool. I'm not looking for analytics. I'm looking for research sources that AI is citing, and then I try to verify the credibility of the sources. As far as stay tuned for USPAP, just pay attention to confidentiality. That's the big thing, and what our obligation is to that. Stacy, you indicated you may have some kind of a very proprietary AI tool at some point. I don't know what your safeguards will be to prevent hacking, but we've got to be very careful about anything confidential that we do upload. Vlad, going to you real quickly about health. Sometimes I will upload like personal things like a lab report that might have come back before I go visit my PCP. So I can assure him it won't be a 15-minute visit because that's all the insurance will pay for. And we have very meaningful conversations. And it's because I use AI, ChatGPT Plus, because I find that gives me what I need. But I also do a lot of historic research involving historic properties, whether it's, architectural, historic characteristics, or perhaps personalities associated with the property. And I do a lot of research of court cases to see what some of the court rulings were in certain things, types of stuff that I get involved in. I love it. I think everybody said it. It's up to us to create it. It gives us a great deal to work with, and you can customize it to your need. And who was it? Alan. Alan, I have fun conversations too. It says, "You ask such detailed questions, Anthony." And it goes on. I feel like it's my friend, I go, "Good morning. How are you today?" "I'm great." and I go, "Growl." You can kind of play around with it. But again, the key thing is protection of confidential information, which, by the way, includes our applying our own analytics to form an opinion about something. It may not be a final appraisal report conclusion with a value opinion, but it may have something to do with you filtering through a raw data pool of transactions and kind of narrowing it down maybe to a dozen out of 62. And you're saying, okay, I feel that these are the most comparable to the subject. Again, as Dorian indicated, if you're going to do analytics, there are some great tools out there. I personally like Solomon, but I think that we've got to be careful, because the minute we apply any kind of rationale and filtering of data, it's part of assignment results, and it's confidential because we're forming an opinion. The minute we have an opinion, it's not just, factual data. So we got to be very careful. And then if you're uploading this stuff, be mindful of it. That's all I can say at this point. AO41, when it does get incorporated, probably into the GRM with the next cycle, that's the guidance and reference manual, will probably evolve even more, because technology is evolving as we're talking. It's just amazing. I am personally, I think a little bit differently, and I'm aware of that. I'm not really getting all excited about AI. My money's on what kind of peripherals are going to be developed in the future to allow people to access AI. For example, when I put on these temporary readers, can I communicate with AI because I'm wearing readers? Just a small example. Or do I always have to have a phone to talk to? So we're going to see AI gets integrated into our daily life a lot more frequently than we realize.
Okay, thank you, Tony. We've reached kind of the end of our hour here, but Mark, if you're still there, I hope that you got some advice and guidance on your question.
Can I say one more thing to Mark?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Tony, thank you for the use perspective, but also scope of work for you, Mark. You have to, your traffic light question, you may not be an expert in answering that. You may not be an expert in analyzing that. You may not be an expert in knowing, what to ask AI and what studies are applicable. So you may be wanting to recommend an expert to handle that part of that assignment for you.
Right. Or I can just make an extraordinary assumption, right?
You can, and that depends on your client relationship. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we
I have
have
a
now.
comment.
Thanks, Tony.
I gotta bring up a point about extraordinary assumption. I've heard it too many times today. You have to have a reasonable basis in order to rely on an extraordinary assumption. So a reasonable basis changes the dynamic about extraordinary assumptions.
It does.
All right.
It does.
I have a comment.
Yep.
What an
Go ahead, Steve.
extraordinary time for AI and 3.6 to come up in the same time. This is going to be traumatic, I think, but let's see what happens. Just a comment.
Yeah,
Well-
it's perfect storm.
Perfect storm, yes.
Perfect storm.
Hopefully we don't go down with the ship.
We will
So-
not.
So I would like to thank Vlad and Stacy and Tom and Dory for working together at putting this program on. We're just doing these quick hits to give you some information. There's no CE. And we'd welcome your suggestions for programs going forward in the future. I do have one last informal poll question, which is how many of you have already selected